Hello everyone and welcome to my build for International Polar Bear Day. So I'm doing something a little different. So the previous World Animal Days have had a habitat in the One World Zoo that we've been working on. However, the polar bears have a polar bear sanctuary that I wanted to do, and this I actually started before I started the One World Zoo. I had known about International Polar Bear Day was in February. I had wanted to do something for them. I had wanted to, really work on it. And when I had first started with this first exhibit, I thought they had the deep diving mechanic. That made sense to me that they would have it. So I had built a deep part of this habitat with an underwater viewing area, and obviously it wasn't as needed, but it still came out really, really cool. And I had put a lot of time and energy into it, so I had really wanted it. I really went all out with this. I really tried hard with the different habitats and exhibits. I used a bunch of the different tips and tricks that I have seen from the different YouTube videos, and you can tell that I'm just kind of going slow and steady through and working hard on the pathing and what I wanted to do. So I have spent a lot of time on this. I will say that all of the video footage is sped up to at least 20 times the recording speed of it. I've spent hours on this particular zoo with the different habitats. Personally, there is still a lot of work that can be done in it, so it's by no means totally complete. And this first habitat I did make a little too small. I ended up having to extend it, which was fine. I didn't mind needing to extend it, and then later on I ended up building some super large habitats later on. And so the idea is that it's a sanctuary. There's different enclosures for different animals. So we have a couple of breeding pairs of polar bears. We have a couple of single polar bears. We have a spot for the babies when they grow up to go to. We have extra empty habitats that we haven't filled, for polar bears that need to be rescued. Like, I really thought about the story, and if there was a polar bear sanctuary, what would it look like? And obviously this is a very commercial setup, because I could have just totally neglected the guests, but I thought it added an interesting dynamic to it to incorporate that conservation and education piece into it. So I did try, to have a lot of the educational points, to have the animal talk points, to have just the conservation boards and the education pieces. I tried to have a lot of those scattered around, to have a bunch of those different things. And obviously you need to have buildings and stuff for the zookeepers, and this was all built in the tundra biome, which was a little annoying for finding the paths and stuff, because you can't find a path in the snow. It's not not doable. So we did end up using the frozen the frozen ice path, because that is always visible even in the snow. And then it's not enough swimming space and not enough space in general. So I kind of went through and edited the terrain a little bit. And once I got this first polar bear situated, it made the others a lot easier. And once I realized I didn't need the deep diving mechanic, I was like, oh, alright, well that makes it a lot easier. A lot less interesting, but a lot easier to manage. So the exhibit does end up a little oddly shaped, but we get there. And he's a happy little polar bear. And it's just him on his own for this first exhibit, because I didn't want to, you know, realistically you're not going to have a bunch of polar bears hanging out together. Like, you rarely see a male and a female polar bear unless it's mating season, right? So realistically they're fine on their own unless it's a mama bear and her babies. But I do really enjoy building this zoo. It really made my heart happy to build this zoo. I'm not gonna lie, I spent way too much time on it. I'm really happy with how it's been turning out though, and it's been super fun to go through and work on it. And I had found, you know, some people had made some polar bear educational boards and stuff, or just bear educational boards on the Steam workshop that I had found and used. And then I had made my own, a couple like educational board frames and polar bear information boards and stuff like that. Blueprints are, I love blueprints. But you can tell, like, I just went through and, like, I do have this nasty habit of just, like, finding one type of rock and just lathering it all in there. And then I need to vary up my rock usage a lot more. So, but I kind of just wanted this to be a beautiful, snowy sanctuary for the polar bears. I want you to really feel like this could be where polar bears could live if they needed to live here, if they couldn't be released out into the wild again, if they didn't have, you know, a place to be in the Arctic. So, am I gonna make a sanctuary for every single animal? No. No. Polar bears were, and I've said this before, like Arctic animals in general, I love the Arctic environment, the taiga, the tundra. I love the snow. I love the animals. White is one of my absolute favorite colors. So it ended up being something I really cared about, and I just really wanted to showcase these amazing creatures that are slowly losing, well, I say slowly, losing their habitats. And I mean, it's obviously not just polar bears. Every single animal is, you know, in danger of losing their environments, or even just their general populations, depending on what specific threats they face. But in general, personally, the polar bears can serve as such a startling visual for it, because you can literally see how hungry some of them are and how thin they are if you see the pictures. And there was a documentary that covered it a little bit, and they just had this polar bear swimming forever, swimming, because there was no ice anywhere. And it's just, when you really delve deep into it, it can be really heartbreaking. I mean, any animal can be, but polar bears are just an animal I've always loved, always adored. You know, polar bear, I have a polar bear, little stuffed polar bear on my desk next to one of my unicorns. And it's just one of those animals that animals in general, we shouldn't lose any more of them. Unicorns are a great mythical creature. Polar bears don't have to join them, you know? So, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I ended up doing. I might add polar bears into the One World Zoo when we do World Bear Day. Just because there are only like 4 different types of bears in this zoo. there's 4 different types of bears, but 1 type of leopard. There is a snow leopard. Like, I feel like we need some more big cats in this game after doing some research and exploration of the animals and stuff we have. Not saying that the animals that we have are not bad by any means. Like, they're all great choices, but we could definitely use, like I said, there's 1 type of leopard, the snow leopard, which, yeah, snow leopards are important. Snow leopards are my favorite, but there's the clouded leopard, the amur leopard, like, just off the top of my head, there's a bunch of other leopards, and I know they're smaller, not as well known, but they're still important, and having them in a game like this, especially when they do it so well, and they make the animals look so adorable. Like, I am in love with the graphics of this game right now. And at the very end there, I took some screenshots of some of the parts of the different enclosures and stuff, and I had captured a mama and one of its babies just playing, and that was so cute. Like, I thought that was just absolutely perfect. If you could go to a zoo and see a mama bear playing with its baby bear, or you could go to somewhere like a polar bear sanctuary and you find this mama with its 2 little twin cubs. I thought that was, I really did enjoy that. I saw that and I was like, I have to include it. I adored every single second of watching them play together, and it was like an intent that they had to play together. Like, that was a programmed part of the game where baby bear was swimming in the water, and then it saw mama bear, and mama bear came over and it swam out, and they started playing and snuggling together, and it was just, it melted my heart. I'm like, how, like, a video game polar bear, like, it's adorable. Like, how can you not want to do something to help them, you know? And you can see I keep deleting the trees off of that pre-built shelter because the polar bears don't like those trees. They're not from the same continent, so I delete them so that the polar bears are happy bears. So this habitat I did make a bit larger, so I was like, I can put 2 bears in here. So I put a mama and a papa bear in there, and they have 2 little babies, and they're the cutest little things ever, and I love them. I love my video game baby bears. So silly, but that's how it is. That's just how it is. So I'm starting, so yeah, this is really our second exhibit, and you can tell, like, I put rocks everywhere I'm going through, making sure there's benches, lights. So yeah, there was a bunch of different stuff I had from the workshop. I had just literally typed in polar bear at one point and just saved a bunch of the stuff that was there. And I really wanted to make this feel complete. I wanted to use plants, rocks, just things that you would find in the polar bear world. I did a little bit incorporate some of the plants that weren't necessarily in their habitats, but were from a similar biome, or a similar continent, like the spruce trees, like just trees in general. Polar bears aren't really around. They live on the ice for most of their life. Like, they don't need a lot of, like, the plant life or the trees. They do need some rocks. I think they like having the rocks around. I did try to add some of the icy rocks in, but my biggest problem with the icy rocks is, like, they look so shiny, not in the winter. Like, when all of the snow melts, and, like, I built this in a taiga or tundra I think biome, so that way, like, it would almost always have snow, and it's always cold enough. Like, I never really needed to put coolers into the exhibits, which was my whole point. I'm like, if this is a polar bear sanctuary, it would be built in the tundra. Like, it would be built as far north as physically possible to build it realistically. So I just kind of, and this was actually a sign somebody had built for the grizzly bears. Like, Planet Zoo doesn't give you like a flat decal for the polar bears. They give you a couple of the statues, but they don't give you like just a flat decal. They give you a grizzly bear one, I think it's supposed to be, so I had ended up using the grizzly bear one for a couple of different spots, but there's a bunch. That's the hard part, is like there's a few animals that it would be cool if we could have more decorations for them or whatever. But so yeah, you can see I'm a lot more thorough with these habitats and enclosures and stuff than I have been with some of the others. And like I said, this was my first like real like I want to do something to bring awareness to the polar bears. I want to do something to bring awareness to like, why would you even need a polar bear sanctuary? And you know, right now we don't need a polar bear sanctuary, but we do need, I live in the United States and there's a lot of like wolf sanctuaries, and it's so sad to think like we have to build and designate specific land to these different animals because we can't respect their environment, we can't keep them safe, right? Like, there's special areas designated all over the world for different types of animals, not just here in wolf sanctuaries. Like, there's all sorts of different stuff. And, you know, there's national parks where there's special rules and stuff. And it's a whole, we have to be told to respect our environment and we don't just do it. And I know sometimes it's a matter of, well, we don't know the effect we're having on the environment, or, you know, we didn't know the kind of effect we had on our environment, but now we do know and we can change some of the things we're doing. And obviously running a computer, not ideal, but it is what it is. I do try in other ways, so it is. But yeah, and this is one of the first little areas I did, and I had tried to figure out how to do pathing, and you can put stuff on top of paths and people will still walk on the paths, so that was kind of a cool mechanic to be able to take advantage of. So I think I'm going to leave you here. I think there's a few more enclosures I built. Like I said, I think we end up with 3 enclosures with polar bears in them, and then I have, I think, an empty enclosure for when the babies start growing up. So, and I ended up building a larger area for the people, and it ended up being here. I found this really cool polar bear fountain that I wanted to use, and I kind of played with making a pond, and actually it turned out super pretty. I really like how this turned out, and it's amazing what you can accomplish in this game with just a little bit of patience and a little bit of trial and error. And you can add the fencing to it, and it ended up being very cool. And I ended up being very, very happy with how it turned out, and I could add, you know, the different shops and stuff to it. And in here I was trying to play a little differently with the different terrain tools, and I didn't really like the circles. The spheres kind of turned it a little weird, so I just ended up doing the squares on top of it. but I just kind of gave up on the whole underwater viewing thing. Like, without the polar bears actually diving into the water, you're just watching them swim. So I was like, you don't really want to just see their legs. But I was like, what if we can go on top of the enclosure? Like, what would that look like? And I am not gonna lie, I made this enclosure ginormous. Like, I did not realize how big I made this enclosure until I zoomed out, and it was about here. I was like, I made this one twice the size of the other one. Like, I probably could have literally cut it in half. That probably would have made more sense. But then I was like, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna make this huge. This is a sanctuary. Maybe these polar bears need some extra space, you know? If this is supposed to represent their ideal, they get giant, right? So I did end up putting 2 more adult polar bears in here. And then I went through and I color coded the habitats. I thought that was a cool feature with the concrete. Like, you can color the concrete whatever color you want. And so because they were all polar bears, I could label it, you know, blue enclosure, purple enclosure, pink enclosure, green enclosure. So then this is the enclosure that I haven't actually put any polar bears in yet. The one that I had just built off in the distance, that is the one that when the babies do start growing up, I can put 1 or 2 of them in there, because I do end up with quite a few babies, and the plan is to be able to release them into the wild. And I don't know if this game does the whole thing where you can, like, so one of the games I played, as you released animals into the wild, you would literally like change their status, and like and through conservation efforts and stuff, like, you could actually help them, and that would reflect in that world that you were creating. But I don't think, as far as I'm aware, this game does that, which is fine. Like, that's not an issue. That was an interesting thing about the other game. Like, I don't know if that was Zoo Tycoon or if that was a different one. There's been a bunch of different games over the years I've played that do different things. So yeah, I just made this look like a little Arctic village, essentially, that I just wanted the guests to be able to come, sit down, learn. And for only having polar bears in the in the zoo, essentially, I think it came out really well. I was really happy overall, and I was surprised at how patient I was with doing it. But I think it's about this time that I started bouncing back and forth between the polar bear sanctuary and the One World Zoo. And because of, you know, how many polar bear exhibits I had built in this one, I was like, well, I don't want to just scrap the whole sanctuary just to show you one habitat in the One World Zoo. Like, that doesn't, and I know I did that with the other animals, and it doesn't seem fair. I admit that the polar bears are getting special treatment on my channel. It's just how we're rolling today. Snow leopards might also get a special shout out, because like I said, we only have one type of leopard. So we have World Leopard Day and we have World Snow Leopard Day. I'm not gonna build 2 snow leopard exhibits in the same zoo. I mean, I could. I definitely would, like. So I don't know. I'm toying with the idea of building a snow leopard sanctuary. I'm not 100% sure. I think that would be a fun one to do, though, because we could add, you know, more mountains, and I could get into like the climbing equipment and stuff. But this is such a simple design, and I love it though. And this, it kind of shows you like, this is how you make blueprint. And I thought that was so neat. I could just go through and make my own, and now I could just have all of this information for the people to read. And it was climate change and population fragmentation and ecotourism and all of these different things that some of them you might not even think about, but it's there and it's a problem. And while it might not be a polar bear specific problem, it's certainly a problem in general. And I mean, obviously on this channel we've done, World Zebra Day, Hippo Day, Bonobo Day, Pangolin Day was last week. Like, there's a lot of animals all around the world that are affected by multiple things. Some of them are all affected by the same thing. Some of them aren't affected by anything. Well, I mean, they're not. Everybody's affected by something. Oh my goodness, I did not realize that it was doing that to me. So I was like, that bathroom was not. I didn't realize the person had put, like, I knew a bathroom was there, but I didn't realize it was that high. So I was kind of silly. So here I'm kind of just trying to make sure everything has the power it needs, and we're just decorating, and I kind of wanted to make this look a little bit more supported. And here I go again with the same rock over and over and over again. And the rock is so nice, it's so big, it just covers all the space. So you can kind of block off all of this stuff you don't want people to be able to really see, and it counts towards scenery and everything else. So yeah, I was happy with where everything ended up. And then we move into the last little part. And we're adding more rocks and more rocks and more rocks. And like I said, this is all sped up like 20 times. Like, I've spent some good chunks of time on this. Just was one of those things where I'd get focused on it, and I'd be like, okay, and I'd see something and I'd go back through and I'd add some more plant coverage, or I'd add some more rock coverage, or just here and there to make things a little bit better. Make it look a little bit more finished, make it look a little bit more complete, make it look a little bit more natural almost. And also, can you really have too many trees? Can you have too many rocks? Can you have too many trees? Is that a thing? So, like I said, it's just literally me going back through and adding some of, those things again, and trying to make sure, like, even though it's the tundra, we still should have some plant life here and there. We should still have some trees. Trees are very helpful. We like trees. So here we are, just adding a little bit more vending machines, garbage cans, because guests are litter bugs. They're super litter bugs. They're super... Garbage should be a solid. So here too, we just used wind turbines. There were a couple of generators, which I didn't realize they were generators in the arches when I first made them. Probably gonna go through and change them. I was trying to find a speaker at that point. So this is just filling in everything and trying to make it look a little bit more natural and a little bit more finished. And this too is why I said you might not want to build to the edge limits, because here in this one I could add trees and decorations and stuff to the sides, to the outsides of the exhibits and the sidewalks, because I didn't have them at the build limit. So it was a lot easier to do that with. Whereas in the first zoo that I have been experimenting with, it was very difficult to add any sort of decorations or anything to, because it was right up close to the edge. Which obviously, they give you a limit, respect it. So, yeah, that's here are the pictures of some of the snapshots. And there's a baby polar bear. I love him. I love him. And actually, the zoo came out, the sanctuary came out really nice. I'm very proud of myself for this one. Obviously, it is not by any means to the standards of what some of these other Planet Zoo creators are making, but it's literally been like a month. It has not been 2 months of me playing this game yet, so I'm really excited. I have this game now. I'm really excited to continue to bring you guys this content, and it seems like you guys like it for the most part. They seem to be one of my more well done series. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys, have a great day.